So you ready to jump into this episode?
Yes, let's do it. I don't want to wait till the morrow.
Yeah, for sure. Welcome to this episode of the Prestige-ish Media Podcast. I am your host, Craig Lake, and with me, he's a terrible maester. It's Dan McNair. He couldn't even fix an itchy asshole if you asked him to. What's going on?
I haven't had a lot of experience with one. What's that?
From everything I read about parasites, I'm going to do a cleanse soon. How
Oh,
about
jeez,
that?
disgusting.
Before we get into the episode, House of the Dragon season 3 trailer. Any thoughts on that? Did you happen to watch that before we got into this thing? Or the
I
teaser, I
did,
guess it
and I had
is.
heard rumors that it was going to be released, and it might have been like on the web within the last week. I thought I saw something, but getting the chance to see it here, I mean, obviously, trailers always make something look appealing, but this one seemed to strike all the right chords. Season 2 of House of the Dragon didn't really land for either of us. And this seemed action packed and interesting, and something that I'm hoping that they can correct some of the issues that we had in the last season. And I'm actually looking forward to it after Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah, to me, and I think they've kind of set a finish line as season 4, which I think going into last season, I think they started with a clear finish line and then they're like, maybe we can stretch it out and redouble up on these innuendos. I think the last season had the bones of a good show, but went out like a wet blanket and meandered a lot in the middle. But I think those were like creative choices versus just not liking the show. What I mean, and the same could be argued about the issues with the last season of Game of Thrones for people. And yeah, I think all shows when they have a real clear picture of when they're going to start and end and they actually stick to it, it's always better. But I feel like we've gotten stuck in this world of like shows that are meant to be 3 seasons that once they get a successful season or two, they're like 5, 6, whatever we can get, and then 4 or 5 anyway. So I think they have a clear finish line in mind, and I think that's a positive.
Yeah, and I think there were other things with season 2 where there was like an original picture, and then there was a writer's strike, and then there was like a rush to get it out.
Oh yeah, I mean there was some challenges there as far as what they could do, but I think the biggest one was budgetary and moving the big battle into this next season that could have been a finale of the season we were in, like at least somewhat rewarding finale. So instead, we stayed in Nightmare on Elm Street
We
3,
got way too much Damon nightmares.
Damon's Dream Warriors. So yeah, we're on what I think is a pretty well-round season, but maybe a little anticlimactic as well. This felt more like an epilogue than an episode, maybe. But this is season 1, episode 6, The Morrow. Do you have a rating and initial thoughts on this?
I give this one an 8. I felt it was pretty solid, tied up the loose ends. It doesn't have as broad a scope as the universe you usually get, whereas we just covered Fallout and it was going all sorts of different directions with all sorts of characters. This felt like a good bookend episode. I think they left the door open in a nice way for another season, but didn't really have to juggle too many different storylines, too many different people. I think we checked in with everybody we needed to, and we're good to move into the next phase.
Yeah, and I mean, they didn't really drag this episode out too far. I mean, it felt like about a 30-ish minute episode. It was longer with all the HBO BS around there. So I don't know the exact runtime it actually was, but it felt like a pretty tight 31-ish minutes. That's what she said. But yeah, I've got it as an 8 as well. So I think this is our first time nailing the same rating in a while, as far as I know. And we'll talk about a season rating at the end. We started with this, it almost seemed like funeral music, but they were just under the tree, but it was like Miles Davis question mark. I mean, it was not a Thronesian song. Certainly I'm burying the lead a little here, but we get like, what is it, the Jim Croce, or I don't know if it's Bad Leroy Brown or the
That is a
16
Jim
tons,
Croce
and
song.
what do you get? But yeah, I think it was an interesting choice to begin and end the episode. They were a little bit more prevalent, but maybe I was just paying more attention to it. We got the title cards, but obviously, whole season we didn't get any sort of credit scene or anything like that. The Maester is tending to dunk. We've got Baratheon there. He mentions Tarth, which I guess minor spoilers, but the big my understanding of what this is, he has some tie to Brienne of Tarth as far as Duncan goes. And so I think we're seeing the beginning of that. I did think Baratheon saying that an itchy asshole is beyond your abilities, and just the whole thing with him saying he was basically beyond care and him just being like, you're fine. He's a terrible maester. We got our semi-annual pissing scene. He said, come to Storm's End and I'll love you like a brother, or don't come and I'll fuck you like a brother, or something of that. What was your take on this open here?
So this was about as good as Lionel has been. I like that he basically like the Maester is a doofus, and I think beyond that other line he says "fuck off, witch" or something
Yeah,
like.
yeah, that is on the board.
So that cracked me up. But then it seemed like he was almost inviting Dunk to like the Greek Riviera for a nude beach or something. Like Storm's End was going to be the Westeros version of the gay nude beach or something like that.
And I don't know if I would go gay, nude, or more of just like polyamorous swingers. They're wild and crazy guys, whatever slips in, but whatever they might find on the way. But yeah, definitely. I have a famous saying in my wrestling group chat of wrestling that gets a little too weird. I'm not sure if they were going to fuck or fight thing. And I think Baratheon's definitely dragging that energy into most of the episodes. But I did want to say in one of the post episodes this season, or maybe it was in the making of, that they have sideways and adjacent to this. He did mention him being like Jack Sparrow esque. So that was dead on in that inspiration. But I think sober Lionel Baratheon without the Jack Sparrow influence is probably a little cleaner, or definitely more tolerable. I thought the first episode, him drunk, was fun, but all of that would not be fun. Maybe a little Russell Brand this episode, but I thought that was all fun. Anything else from here? We do get the like fuck that and fuck you, like about Baylor. It seems Duncan. We get mopey Duncan again, which is angry or mopey Dustin in Stranger Things. Definitely not my favorite hang for Duncan when he is mopey. But he basically said that he risked nothing and the gods didn't favor a fraud because he was fighting like his own men that couldn't come after him, and that this was basically all a mockery and there's a war coming of sorts. So not quite winter is coming, but I'm not sure what the layout is there. But we do get this fuck the dragons thing. I don't know if they exactly invoke this again, but I think in this episode it was one more dead dragon. I think pre-episode, but from a Fossaway who took a deal, we got the only good dragon is a dead dragon, maybe. But either way, the same sentiment. Anything from you there to that point, or as we wrap this scene?
Well, this reminded me a lot of when we were talking about Last of Us with our good buddy Greg, whose birthday is actually today. So happy birthday to Greg.
I happy birthday.
But he said you want everybody's motivations to make sense and not somebody just being bad for the sake of being bad. So you can understand Dunk feeling remorseful in the weight of the world because this heir to the throne died because as a direct reaction of his events. But you can also see Lionel's point of view, like, I risked something. Me and the Beesbury and the other dude, like, we put our life on the line. He was fighting against guys that were sworn to protect him. So I can really understand his motivation here. And I actually thought he had a really good point in that sober moment. I applauded it.
Yeah, I mean, in the post episode, they talked about him being like one of the men of honor here. He drinks and is whatever, but has like at least some sort of moral code. So yeah, interesting there. We get the funeral, which we know normally the dragons would light the fire, but there are no dragons. Too bad they didn't have a puppet to simulate. We got our Sept again making another appearance, their next appearance in the season. So is this son of Baylor? Did we get introduced to him? Is this the one from the wall that we see later? Go
I
ahead.
wanted to do the Makar's. So I thought it was Makar's four
I did
sons.
too, but it seems like they really made a point to mention three sons this episode. Makar, so I think this is Baylor's other son, and I think Baylor's son is the one that was maybe training to be a maester. That maybe because we don't get mention of the four son, and I felt like they said three sons a bunch of times, and I thought it was four sons too, but maybe they've just given up on the other son already, and he's just like dead to them.
Or
But
maybe they're holding it for a future season because you're right. This was Baylor's son, and he mentioned what father dies in the armor of the sun. So this would be
yeah,
a cousin to Aegon, Darian, Arian, and
yeah,
Master Aemon, who we later see at the wall.
and that's why I was thinking it might be Amon because we did get like the peppered gray in the hair, which obviously he is gray, but
Well, and
obviously
at first that was my read.
It's more of a Targaryen like highlight. But I don't know that we've seen that in any brunettes we've seen so far, like that Targaryen lens flare. So I felt that's what they were hinting at, but I feel like that should be Aemon, but we
If it
haven't
is, then he would technically be Egg's cousin, not brother.
and not a monkey's uncle. But I will say that regardless of how that all shakes out, we want to point out this is an instant reaction. I'm live from the Punta Cana, and we haven't read any of
Not
these
that kind of yo
stories.
feed, ladies.
We haven't actually read the short stories, although I did start at least this one, and I may finish the novellas before we get to season two, just because I don't, much like Last of Us, at least it's a quicker turn, but I'm not sure I can wait 2 more years if you get season two and three filmed in 2 years to get to the end of this thing. I might jump the line a little bit. But yeah, to your point, I think that's one of the backgrounds of that battle is he had to borrow his son's ill-fitting armor, and that's part of how possibly this catastrophic injury happens. So for whatever that's worth, he does want Sir Duncan gone, basically, like he's being rejected there. He is just like caning his way through the episode. We get this reunion with Raymond Fossaway, the green apple knight instead of the red apple knight, heir to the cider throne, and husband of a whore.
So I got questions about that.
Yeah, okay.
So she was already pregnant.
That's the thing is obviously he's got to be a virgin, and I don't know if she's really pregnant or not, but she's
Well, she
inferring that
looked.
he is.
I didn't do like a check, but when she first came on screen, I'm like, oh, Justin's new girl is already pregnant. And then they start
Yeah,
talking about like all this just happened since the battle.
yeah. I mean, either way, it's like an okey doke type of situation
She's
here.
shopping for a baby daddy and he's just falling for it.
Now, do we think is her name Rose, the whore from Game of Thrones, like season one on? The this has got to be like her like
The one that
mother.
Theon was all in love with.
Yeah, yeah, it's gotta. She's got to be a forebearer for that dog and pony show, or at least. And it's probably with Dondarrion because he said he was going to turn the whole realm red. She was already red, or maybe the Red
Well,
Queen or
maybe
whoever
they
that
improved
pony
over
show.
time if that's the case.
Yeah, who know who's to say? So, I mean, the boob genetics, but I think they're pretty comparable to each other, although we didn't get any boob this season and we got penis and ass out the ass, literally, but I
Well,
digress.
thanks for weighing in on that. It hadn't even occurred to me, but I'm glad you've got the scorecard of boobs and dicks.
Yeah, and I don't like the scorecard. I got to be answered. And to that point, Raymond says an unripe green is better than a wormy red. Not sure what your take is there. And I thought it was interesting to see Duncan play dumb with the whole thing and not like shit on his happiness. I mean, you could go either way with that being a friend of yours, but I think once you're this far down the road where he's fake pregnated, or there's only so much you can say. Anything else on in here? I would say Raynon to me seems like a mix of Podrick and I'm blanking, but Jon Snow's friend from the wall.
Yeah, I think it's Sam.
Yeah, so he seems a little Sam and Podrick adjacent. Obviously, in a little bit better shape than Sam was, certainly. But yeah, I enjoyed Raymond most of this season.
Yeah, he
So
does have a naivete, but we do learn that, like, we know his cousin was a bastard and turned on him, but the way it was spun was it's not
not
Justin, but it's something like Justin. It's like Justin, but
it's Stefan.
that's the bad one. Yeah.
And to be clear, he's not a bastard, but Raymond is the
Right.
other one. Which one are you talking
Oh,
about?
I'm
Their
sorry.
parents? Yeah, Raymond.
Maybe I'm getting okay. Yeah, Raymond,
Raymond is the
the
friend.
good one.
Stefan is the bad one, but not a literal bastard because I feel we're on a show we've got to be clear about that on. But
Very
the ba-
true.
the bad Fossaway, yes.
But basically, like he lost his title or his coat of arms and things like that. And so just there were circumstances for Raymond siding with Dunk where even his brother is cutting him out of the family.
Yeah, and I wasn't really sure how that was all shaking out, but your explanation of that makes sense to me. So Duncan is called to Prince Makar. He demands a word. Makar says that he's going to send Arian to the east. There's this talk about them both being blamed in their own way for Baylor's death. Go ahead.
I'm wondering, like, when you hear that Dunk is summoned, how are you expecting this to go? And
Well,
how does the
I
scene play out compared to those expectations?
I'd seen the pre-episode trailer last week. That changes it a little, but were you expecting this to be a more negative interaction?
I thought very much Makar could be like, you screwed everything up. I want to kill you. But he
Yeah,
leads with, I'm sending my idiot son far away. So you start with, oh, all right, maybe you're buddies. And then he starts to talk about like the effects of this, like how it's going to make life impossible for him. And then you're like, okay, here it comes, here it comes. And so I thought through the course of this conversation, the way that were they going to come together or were they going to be on the opposite side, it really zigged and zagged in a very interesting way.
yeah, I'll agree. And I think that's partially noted. I think your 8 is reflective of the season as much as it is this episode. But I'll say that for an episode with this much action, I'm sure maybe that zigging and zagging was keeping your interest a little bit more than it might normally, as we know you're the action lord. But yeah, at the end of last episode, my mind was really racing where this would go, but they did tease and give the full invite of this interaction in the episode trailer, which I could have done without. But I'm even when I'm watching seasons, it's tough for me to avoid the pre-episode trailers. I got to be honest. But yeah, so he does say he's sending Arian to the east, so that's good sign. But I thought it was more of this mutual gloom party of they'll blame both of us. And
And I thought that was advanced thinking. Like, Makar's looking at it in the ways of, so how does this affect a ruler or a hand of the king or somebody in my standing? What are the people going to say? How is this going to play out? And Dunk sees a little bit of it in his own perspective in a more worldly way than I might expect Dunk because he seems very straightforward, but he's thinking along the same lines. And so they almost have these course of events have put them in the same boat, so to speak.
yeah, but we also do to your point of, and to my point earlier in the season of this less oafish Duncan than expected, but you've mentioned maybe some of his sharp one-liners when he basically says you swung the mace more or less, I think was the quote when he talks about being blamed. And so I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was a fair, like wouldn't necessarily expect that from Duncan. It's not surprising with what we've seen this season, but like I wouldn't be predicting it unless I heard it thing. And I think that you get a little bit of it post episode, but if I were to describe the feeling of it, it works together in that we get somebody and they didn't describe it this way. They just described it more of the line that we're getting to, which is I'm done with princes. He's been disillusioned with these men of honor being who he thought they were going to be. Like he thought it was going to be more stop raping, sir, and less keep raping, sir. And so I would call it maybe a coming of age. And I think in the stories, I think Dunk is actually supposed to be a little bit younger than he is portrayed here. And so, yeah, I think this all checks out is that he's less naive now to the world. So this did this smarten him up? Question mark, because he didn't seem like a super smart person, but he does seem smarter as this goes on.
And I really appreciate the way that they've portrayed Dunk this whole first season as his first instinct is always what's the honorable thing. And it almost makes him quick-witted when they talk about Darian didn't look for his missing brother. Like Dunk is right on that. He didn't portray or race after whoever he thought the captor was, but he's claiming his brother was kidnapped. And that's something that somebody that's like maybe working an angle might come to, but Dunk comes to all these reasonings through a place of honor, same as the swinging a mace line. And so there, it's very true to the character where he might not be quick-witted, but he's always thinking about the honorable thing. And now, yeah, he's done with princes because the honorable thing just really isn't what he expected it to be.
Yeah, and so we see A spying as we get the I wonder what the Morrow will bring Sir Arlen line, and that's the title line. And we started to get this ask for him to be a knight for Makar so that he can be trained better and that Egg can squire from him. The realm has as many hedge knights as hedges thing, and perhaps maybe him being more than that would be important. And this is where we get the done with Prince's line. So we really get our first Egg and Duncan scene with them talking about, were you spying on me? And he lies. I thought just the concern of Egg, were you in pain or are you in pain? And he says, I can't, Egg, I'm sorry. Maybe a cheesy line, but I don't know when this novella was written, 93, if it was less cheesy, but maybe you're not the knight I thought you were, but I think it's a fair line. Your thoughts on the maker of it and then the Egg exchange?
It's interesting that Dunk starts out this season just wanting to be able to, he's got these dreams of grandeur. He's going to be a knight and he's going to join the King's Guard or he's going to hook up with a powerful house. And he's basically had two offers here in 10 minutes of screen time between Baratheon. They could do a lot of good teaming up together. And now he's got Targaryens basically saying, come swear your sword to me and you can train under me. Like he's got options on the table. All of a sudden, he's like the best free agent in the league during the free agent season. And it's funny how through the course of this season, what he wanted at the beginning, now he's presented with at the end, and he denies it all. So that to me was telling.
And he was also offered his position in the legal gambling ring. Who knows? He could have wormed his way into Gwen or Gwen, only her 14th name day, but that hasn't stopped anyone in this series before. And also, he's not really that old. I think he's supposed to be like 15 or something, if that. I thought seeing Egg and him were good. Like, obviously, not enough Egg for my liking the last two episodes for me. He's really the highlight as much as I like Sir Dunk, their chemistry together. Just he's very good for a kid his age. I think his performances and but the show that I can like a child male actor
And nobody will like look at you
yeah,
sideways.
I will
Makar
say
does give a good line here that I wrote down, but I don't have the whole context laid out. But Dunk says something about how he was like laying under the tree and Sir Arlen was giving him advice. And Makar, I think it's Makar, said something like, so what answer does your tree give you?
yeah, and I think it was that the realm will need his foot more than a prince's life was the thought is that that's the only thing he can come up with. And I think he scoffed at that, but I think that's how I think that is important to note. That's how Dunk is sorting it out as in his brain is he's figuring out that maybe he does have a role to play in this. And as we say that, because as I word that out, it always reminds me of the old Gandalf line about Gollum, as we don't know what role he has yet to play thing.
Mm.
The ending of this season, and maybe it's just the size of Egg and his little green shawl, but it felt a little more fellowshippy and to me towards the end and a little bit more upbeat. Certainly the most Tolkien-y that I've gotten out of a Game of Thrones universe. It's just a lot more pleasant and less nihilistic, maybe. Like, obviously, there were some, we don't end the season on the greatest of notes, but it's still not as nihilistic as the rest of this series has been. It's compared to, it's a little more chipper.
That's fair.
So we get Arlen dying. So this was something that I had it spoiled on a non-spoiler section of another podcast that I thought was weird. So I've kind of held the conversation because I didn't think I would have picked up on it, and I certainly didn't think you had yet. But Dunk was never sworn in as a knight. And so did you clock that before? Because I did not have that clocked. I think the
So I
closest
had
we
suspected it, but I didn't have the receipts.
Well, and I thought the closest we got to talking about it, and by the time we got past that episode, which was 4 into 5, then it had already been spoiled for me. So I just held it for 5. So who knows but I don't think I would have got there, to be clear. But you had mentioned just him not knowing the words to
Yeah.
the Make a Night Dog and Pony show. And there was also earlier in the season, while we're correcting all of our bullshit for the season, in the first episode with Plum, or second episode, I guess it would have been, in Ashford, in between his loogies, he talks about, yeah, I know any knight can make a knight, but do you have any proof of it? So we did get that like little forbearance into the any knight can make a knight Dog and Pony show as well. But yeah, with all that said, what's your thoughts? I think this is a big reveal that this man of honor, while he embodies the honor of a knight, lies his way into this whole thing anyway. Like, he actually was never knighted.
Yeah, I think it makes it a lot more interesting, to be honest, that we saw that. And we also get the whole Pennytree story. And I don't know how relevant that's going to be, but it does play in at the end of the episode, too.
Yeah, so he nails a penny to the, or he talks about how Sir Arlen, when they would go to battle, they'd nail a penny to the oak in the square. And then when they return, they'd take the penny down. But because I think the inference is so many of these people would die, that it would be hard to find a spot to nail a new penny.
And
Now,
also, his name was Sir Arlen of Pennytree.
yeah, yeah. Now, also, did he have dementia? Because he was starting to tell the story over and over again, I guess. I don't know what those last few, however long Dunk was with him, was like. But we get this thing I think is interesting because we've gotten his rejection of Egg, and we don't see it right away. But this, like, a true knight always finishes a story. George, not a true knight, to be fucking dead clear. But
George,
you know,
not a true knight.
he can serve a hell of a line, but he can't finish a story. But
He
I,
finishes the end of a buffet line before he finishes the end of a story.
geez, and crackers, Dad, we do not fat shame on this podcast, as our reviews can clearly tell us.
Come on, Craig.
But
I
we,
have
I will,
fat friends, and you're four of them.
I will story shame the fuck out of them. I will say that. Now, yeah, so this set me the expectation. Like, we have the expectation anyway, but we really don't know the story. So it's, are they going to swerve us somewhere here with this egg thing that nobody's revealed to us somehow? We get Beesbury, get it, like bees buried in a coffin. Apparently, they put a queen in there. Raymond said it was some type of bee magic, and this, lady of the night had to smarten him up. Now, what was going on? There was these kids playing in the corner. I caught the first line, but not the second line. But we get a line, which I'm wondering if this has to do with House of the Dragon. But we get a "Do you yield, dragon whore?" And then I don't know what she said something like "you little shit" or something. But it was a funny exchange. Did you catch the second part of that line? And
I did not, and that was definitely in the background. I am clocking the words that you said. I didn't write them down, but yeah, there could be more to that, that's for
in
sure.
our quick instant reaction, I could only get one of the two, but just me infamously a fan of children cursing, or most people for that matter, but I found that funny. So now we get the brother who
Darian.
is Darian, and he's in the tent. Now, I don't really get to have shame coming here. These men are dead because I guess he must have killed a few of them, or
I don't know if he was aligned with
because
the opposite side.
yeah, I mean that's true. And so this is more of a Beesbury funeral. Like I guess I was confused in that yes, that was going on, but they're just like drinking ale on the side and shooting the shit. I didn't know if this was a wake party, a bees and honey type of deal. But yeah, in the context of it being Beesbury's funeral, but I mean, he went to Baylor's funeral, but I know they fought on the same side, but it wasn't the same side that was at the funeral. So I don't really know what that was all about. But he asks him to take Egg to Squire. And I think we've heard of like the womb of the dragon or like the seed of the dragon being tainted or their bloodline being tainted. But this is the first hint, and I don't know how taken from the book this is or not, but he says that maybe it's more how they're like we get a nurture versus nature argument here where he's saying
Yeah, I
that
agree.
Arian was more of a happy kid. He liked fishing, which we knew Egg liked fishing. But I am a little confused here, and we can get to it as we go. We get Egg in the mirror. We see him take the knife out of his potato. And then I thought maybe he was going to shave his head.
I think that was what he was doing.
He saw his hair growing in, but then he was going to cut up, kill Arian, make him his sister, what have you. And he gets caught by Maker. And so I think there's some concern what Maker might do to Egg here, question mark. And then it's like, where did Arian get this behavior? And we're coached in this society of like cycle of violence and abuse. And we've had allegedly crawling into bed and threatening to cut his privates. But I don't really get those vibes from Makar. And it doesn't seem like the actor who plays him does. A lot of the after episode was him seeing Egg as his last chance to read a son right. And that's what I got on screen from like the sandwich bread of this. But in the meat of it, this part was a little bit confusing to me. If it's going to be nurture, what's the nurture that's causing it? Verse, we do get a little bit of the finish line of maybe not being raised in a house of privilege is where he needs to go. But there's also all this, just because you're raised in a house of privilege doesn't mean you like kill your brother in the middle of the death sleep. Your thoughts?
So the key line that Darian puts out there is he says, like, my brother wasn't always a monster. And the way it's delivered is you think he's talking about Aegon because Dunk responds like, Egg's no monster. And Darian's, oh, no, other brother. So yeah, he's talking about Arian, which you referenced, but I really wanted to deliver that line because I think that it's like well structured and I think it's pretty pertinent. And I think this is what Makar is dealing with, what Darian's talking about while we see all this, because it's not necessarily, I didn't read it as Makar is the one meeting them, making them monsters, but it's the legacy, it's the name, it's the tradition. Like they're a generation removed from Daemon and Rhaenyra and like this whole Blackfire rebellion and stuff like that. So it's a lot of weight to live your life in the Summerhall Castle under all this history of who you're supposed to be as a Targaryen. And I think Darian's almost, and who knows, maybe he's had a special dream vision or something like that. He obviously cares for Aegon and he thinks that Dunk is a way to salvation or a way to get Aegon away from that weight of the name and live some life and learn some things to help him be a better potential king someday. So I don't necessarily pin it on Makar as far as just like the tragic history of the family.
I don't either, but I think it becomes, if it's just the lineage of the Targaryens, and I get it's the privilege of the lineage, but it does, is that more nature than nurture, or is it the Targaryen fair haired privilege? What are we circling around to? But yeah, I just thought the thought process is after seeing Baylor die and seeing Arion on the edge of death, assumingly he knows his brother is going to be sent away. I guess the point, and to your point, and I do agree with this and the monster part of it, I did not assume he meant egg, but I assume that's what the writers were inferring. But yeah, the point of it was they're showing egg in the mirror and like him looking at that hair growing in his Targaryen garb. And then he's the crusty killer doll from Treehouse of Horror season 3 or whatever season it is. I'm totally pulling that out of my ass and had to check it off the bingo card. But yeah, I think it's all interesting and glad to see Egg ultimately get away, although we can talk about how that happens. But
Yeah,
certainly,
if Makar wasn't there, what happens? This could be a whole different story.
yeah, I think that girl's name might be Gwen or Gwen, but I did hear in the book it's not pointed out her name, even though it's her name day. George never names her, so that's
Oh,
funny. But they did name her earlier in the season, and I'm just going off memory, but I think it was like Gwen or something weird. So Raymond buys Sweetfoot to give back to Dunk, which seems like it would be like it seemed like Sweetfoot was his favorite conversating horse, but also, you know, we've had a few horses too many. Like he's been riding around with 3 horses the whole season. We've had 2 girls, 1 cup, 3 guys, 2 horses. I mean, there's been a lot going on. And so he ultimately gives Sweetfoot to Foss away, who feeds him apples, a green apple, and talks about running the cider business. I thought this was a good way to send Sweetfoot off if he wasn't going to continue on this side of the journey. I'm not a big horse guy, but Shadowfax, a white horse. This seems to be a beautiful horse. Any farewells to Sweetfoot or thoughts on our farewell to Raymond for now?
I think there may be seeds planted here for later stuff. I mean, obviously, it's a great gesture by Raymond, but the fact that Dunk doesn't take him up on it makes me think like the only reason we saw this scene is it's going to be pertinent at some point later because it's here's this really important thing. Oh no, thank you. If you're going to dig a hole, I don't really want to see you fill it in if the end result is just more flat earth.
Yeah, I think getting some sort of happy ending to Sweetfoot and like how does he doesn't really have anything to buy him back. So there could have been multiple ways. I mean, Baratheon could have given it to him as a gift. I mean, a million things could have happened. He could have got treasure and jewels because the village enjoyed his performance. Raymond Fossaway's whore could have just had all this money stored up. Who's to say? But we got what we got here, as you pointed out. I did think there was a shortage of prop knives, and it seemed like the same knife that Egg used to like cut go kill his brother was the same one that Dunk was using like on the tree to nail his penny in there. It seemed pretty adjacent, but did you think that was? I couldn't tell what the fuck was going on. Like he was behind the tree cutting his wrists, it looked like, or like he
I
had
thought he was
his,
going to carve Tansel's initials into the tree, like
he
T
had,
times T with a little heart.
he had Danny DeVito's toe knife, or I didn't know what the hell was going on. But yeah, so he takes, I don't know if he was like getting the penny properly ready. I guess maybe putting the hole in the penny to nail it, perhaps. That would make
So I
sense.
thought he was carving out a little hole for the penny to fit in, and then he just bashed
Oh,
it with the
okay.
back of the knife.
Yeah, definitely you're a little more educated on the glory hole of it all than I am. And you'll have to get a bigger
Stop,
knife. You'll have
stop
to get
touching those trees, Craig.
You'll have to get a bigger hole than that to get Sir Arlen through there, sir. We've got Chestnut and Thunder, the remaining horses. He's talking to Chestnut, says he doesn't really know where he's going to go, but they're just been pre-talk with Maker before they're just going to hit the open road with or without Egg. But soon we see Egg, and he says, I've come to serve you, sir. He makes it seem like his dad has approved of this, which we later find out he is not. So he says that he can ride Chestnut, but he better not find him on Thunder unless he puts him on Thunder, which I think Thunder is obviously Thunder's the war horse, but I think it's also Thunder was the one that he was on earlier in the season, if I had to guess. We find out about the nine kingdoms versus the seven kingdoms. Is
Yeah,
this
that was interesting. I'm like, do I need to be writing these down?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know if it was going to be like the stuff that was past the seven kingdoms. Was I guess it was like, did he mess with? I don't know if it's
I think maybe
Essos
that
or
was just a joke
Bravos
at the
or
Game of Thrones stuff. Like they've been calling it Seven Kingdoms forever, but really this was almost like a wink at the audience.
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe this is where we find out that there's more than seven, but I think it's like the ones that are outside of the realm. I did think this was funny because we know the history of the Mad King to come later. And he said, "Are you mad?" And the answer from Egg was, "Is that relevant?" So I just thought that was an interesting turn of phrase. He mentions Egg that there's puppet shows in Dorne. He's never been over the Red Mountains, maybe the
If I've
Misty
told you once, I've
Mountains.
told you a million times. It's supposed to be Spinal Tap and Puppet Show.
Okay, gotcha. I'm assuming that's a Spinal Tap reference.
Oh, totally.
We get the ghost of Sir Arlen on a horse. I'll check off my bingo card here and say your mileage may vary. I don't know that I specifically needed that. And because it's okay, let's say you just have the ghost of Sir Arlen under the tree waving him off. But a ghost horse, for crying out loud, that neither of them look ghostly. Get the fuck out of here, I say. And
The horse had a smile on its face. That's all I'll say.
it rode hard and put away wet like
Oh,
us this
Jesus.
season. My closing notes on the Marvel post-credit scene are Egg ran away. Ha. Thoughts on us finding out this reveal? We start and end in how we started with Egg being stolen. I assume his dad is going to give more coverage isn't the right word, but more going after than his brother did earlier in the season. Like I would assume they want him back.
That's how it was set up, and this makes for maybe some conflict or some chase going forward. Definitely his reaction wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to let this be now.
Yeah, and I don't know what I was expecting to see next season, but I don't know that seeing them chasing them is exactly how I want to spend next season. But hopefully, if we get some of that, it's only the entry to the season and not the season thing. But yeah, I think we're going to get season two next year based on the second novella. Seems like they'll go year after year for three. George says he'll write six, but we've discussed that already. He is not a man of honor. Rating on the season and closing thoughts on the season here.
You kind of mentioned it in the opening, but we get the 16 tons song,
Yes.
which was like a weird way to close it out. I thought we got that in season one of Fallout too. I could be wrong, but it's definitely more of a Fallout song than a song that I would expect to hear in Night of the Seven Kingdoms. As far as my rating goes, I give the season an 8. I think expectations have a lot to do with it, and it was a nice surprise. I was very skeptical coming into it, and it exceeded my expectations. It didn't have a lot of what a person rooted in Game of Thrones might look for, but I thought the lore was good, the story was good. But the real strength of the show is the character development, Dunk and Egg's interactions, and the dialogue. It's not an action show, but it was still very compelling for me, the action lord, despite that, with all the different character interactions that they introduced here. What do you give this season?
I'm sitting around an 8.3. 8.5 seems a little high, 8 seems a
Yeah.
little low. I think it's hard once again to compare anything to Game of Thrones, but I think if you mix this and House of the Dragon, you get Game of Thrones somewhere between there if they had a baby. But I really like getting a bite sized chunk of something that we can get 3 years in a row, hopefully, and just enjoy something and have it not be so heavy and not have to switch 80 views of perspective and have to like I think this would have been a better entry point for Jessica Z as an
Oh,
example.
definitely than season
Yeah.
two. And it's more day in the life type stuff. She was just opposed to the idea of dragons And
Yeah, but
so
you don't get dragons, you don't get as much nasty stuff, you don't get a baby getting killed right away. Surprisingly, Jessica Z, for all her weirdness, not a fan of violence. Who would have guessed? Especially with the child she bore. Speaking of evil
young
seed of the
Annabelle.
womb. Yeah. So, yeah, I think for some people, this is a better entrance point than Game of Thrones is. And yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. We are, speaking of Z, getting ready to cover Euphoria with her imminently. We're going to cover season 1 and 2 on the way to season 3. Did you start your first 2 episode watch? Any expectations here?
I have not started. I like a lot of the cast that I've seen so far. I really
Hi,
don't know what to expect out of it.
yeah, I think this was a show that I avoided because originally pitched this was a show about just like teens doing drugs and hooking up, as far as I know. This is the guy that did the producer of the show, I think produced that. I did not personally watch it, but it was pretty well panned. The show he did with, I think it was The Weekend and Lily Rose Depp.
Who you're a big
So
fan of her nipples.
yeah, to that point, he seems like a very horny director. And but all these characters are like 30 now, or I mean, Zendaya's got to be 30. I haven't looked it up, but I mean, they were all probably of age at the time. They're more than of age now. So I feel more comfortable watching it. And it seems season 3, I did see the season 3 trailer, even though I haven't seen seasons 1 and 2. But in making the decision to cover this, it's a lot more adult content. It seems like them post school and they're all like either selling drugs or working girls, or I don't know. So it definitely seems like we're working our way to a more mature finish line that I can reconcile watching this a little better. Any thoughts on that from you?
Working our way to a more mature finish line. Is that masturbation allegory? Is that what you're talking
It
about?
is not, but Jessica was actually very concerned about us covering this show, which is funny just because she's like the least appropriate person on the podcast, or at least equally, I would say least appropriate, least trustworthy on a live stream is definitely true. So yeah, I thought it was very funny. She's just, are you sure we can do this? And I'm like, I feel better doing it with you. We want to have that female perspective for our female listeners when we can get it. And so, yeah, I'm excited to do it and excited to get Z back on. Anything else as we close out here?
When can our viewers and listeners expect Euphoria to be getting
I would,
covered?
I would say by next week.
We got a late night for Craig in Punta. Is that right?
Yeah, at least I'm not in Puerto Vallarta.
That place sounds like, I don't know, female anatomy. I don't know.
You've heard that before. I'm in the Dominican, and I guess the Dominican and Haiti are like the same island, and we're on one side and Haiti's on the other. Who knew?
I do remember a little bit of geography teaching me that, but until you said it, I couldn't have placed it.
Yeah, my like this area of geography is a little fuzzy. It's been a long time since I cared about geography.
Have you run into any pirates?
Some last night. There was a pirate party, actually. So I haven't unveiled those pictures yet. So soon. I mean, I only took like a selfie I didn't want to share, but there were real photos taken. So hopefully I'll get my hands on some of that at some point. So
This sounds interesting. How much longer are you out there for?
I leave tomorrow morning and basically fly all day to Vegas. So I have a fun day to look forward to tomorrow.
Oh, geez.
How was the big Valentine's Day for you?
It was pretty good, pretty good. Got some fancy new digs and some kicks, and got to spend some nice quality time. So everything coming up aces on that side.
You said new dicks and kids?
Yeah, there
Define
must
new
be a connection problem there.
what's new digs mean though? Is that
A new sweater.
okay? Okay, I gotcha. Gotcha. Cool. Congratulations.